Today, we'll be discussing history of classification of plants. Classification denotes the arrangement of single plant or group of plants in distinct categories, following a system of nomenclature and in accordance with the particular and well-established plan. The basic unit of classification is species, which are grouped into genus and further grouped into family, suborder, order, subclass, class, and division. The beginning of the classification of organisms took place at remote times by the non-civilized people for their uses and in their own language. With the development of language, the distinction between carnivores, herbivores, poisonous plants, and edible plants, etc., became clear. The pre-civilized men recognized groups of plants on the basis of gross morphology, and this was the beginning of the artificial system of classification. Their way of classification are rooted in their practical consideration. The history of classification starts from the time of the earliest Indian philosophers like Chuck and early Greek philosophers like Aristotle, Plato, and other also try to classify plants from their own viewpoint, which invariably were more philosophical in nature than scientific. The various classification of plants proposed so far belong to either of these three categories: artificial, natural, and phylogenetic. Artificial system classifies plants with the help of one or few characters only, primarily with the intention of easy identification of the plants. And the example of classification is John Rye or Carl Linnaeus. Then natural system is mainly based on from a relationship, realizing all informations available at that time. And for example, Deacon Dole, Robert Brown, Bentham and Hooker's classification. Then phylogenetic system. This system tries to classify plants based on their genetic relationship and according to their evolutionary sequences. Example is Hutchinson system of classification. Then C. Jeffrey in 1982 presented that the system of classification can be divided into four main types: artificial, pre-evolutionary natural systems, phylogenetic systems, and phenetic system. Artificial system was habit-based classification, and pre-evolutionary natural system, here overall similarity between plants were much more natural. For example, Bentham and Hooker and APG Kendall classification. Phylogenetic system, here natural grouping as a result of descent or common characters are related to each other through a common ancestry. And example is Engler system of classification. Phenetic system of classification, here maximal generalization of the totality of the features of all phenotypes are considered. And example of classification is Hutchinson system of classification. Next is history of classification. We will discuss history under different stages. So first we'll start with the initial stage. Theophrastus in 370 to 285 BC. Theophrastus was a Greek naturalist and also known as father of botany. He published Inquiry into Plants. He classified plants on habit base as herbs, undershrubs, shrubs, and trees. He gave the name and description to 500 plants in his book Historia Plantarum, and this was the oldest botanical work in existence. He pointed out the differences between dicots and monocots also. Then Pedonian Dioscor writes in 62 to 128 AD. He was a physician of Asia. He described 600 medicinal plants, and his book was named Materia Medica in Greek. Then Andrea Cisalpino in 1519 to 1603 AD. He was an Italian physician, and he wrote the book De Plantis in 1583. He described 1500 plants, including woody and herbaceous plants. Then Gaspard Bohin in 1560 to 1624 AD. He collected the plants from Italy, France, Switzerland, and uh, he just wrote so many books also. He first who attempted to use binomial system of nomenclature. Next is John Rye in 1628 to 1705 AD. He was a British botanist, published 3 volumes of Historia Plantarum from 1686 to 1704, and he was the first who divided the herbs and trees and also divided monocotyledons and dicotyledons on the basis of 1 and 2 cotyledons. Then J.P.D. Tournefort in 1656 to 1708. He described trees and herbs and also considered corolla. Then Carus Linnaeus in 1707 to 1778. He was a Swedish naturalist and also known as father of modern botany and taxonomy. He published Genera Plantarum in 1737, then Classis Plantarum in 1738, then Philosophia Botanica in 1751, Species Plantarum in 1753. It described 7,300 species were described and arranged on sexual system. So it was an artificial system based on few characters only. Next is natural system stage. A.L.D. Joshua in 1686 to 1758. He published Genera Plantarum and classified plants into 15 classes. Then A.P.D. Candolle in 1778 to 1841. He was a French botanist and published so many books and developed morphological approach to classification. A.P.D. Candolle couldn't complete his work, and later his son Alphonse de Candolle completed the work. Then next is Charles Darwin in 1859. He published Origin of Species, where he suggested the principle of natural selection and evolution of species. Then Bentham and Hooker in 1800 to 1884 and published Genera Plantarum in from 1862 to 1883 and gave practical use of classification, ever since been as inspiration to generations of the botanist. Next stage is phylogenetic stage. Phylogenetic classification was based on the ideas of evolution. It started with Enrichter to 1804 to 1849 and Eichler in 1837 to 1887. Then Engler and Branch in 1887 to 1915 placed monocots before dicots, and orchids were considered more evolved than grasses. They classified plants into 2 classes: class 1 monocotyledons having 11 orders and class 2 dicotyledons. Then A.B. Rentley in 1865 to 1938, they treated monocots as primitive to dicots and Amentiferae and Apetalus as primitive dicots. The first purely phylogenetic system was based on dictates of phylogeny and was given by Charles Edwin Vesey in 1845 to 1915. John Hutchinson in 1884 to 1972. This classification was based on Bentham and Hooker and Vesey. Next is recent stage. The system was improved by contemporary botanists like Takhtajan in flowering plants, origin and dispersal in 1969, then conquest in evolution and classification of flowering plants in 1981, then Stebbins in flowering plant evolution above the species level in 1974, and Robert Thorney in a phylogenetic classification of angiospermy in 1976. Classification, here the classification was based on distribution, ecology, anatomy, phylogeny, then palynology, uh, cytology, and biochemistry, apart from only morphology. Techniques of herbarium preparation and presentation was developed and established in this stage. Then biosystematic phase. The last 50 years have been a qualitative improvement in the area of taxonomic concept and application by advancement of biosystematics. The new systematics is aimed at achieving the goal of hollow taxonomy. Huxley in 1940 proposed the term new systematics. Then Campangeli in 1943 proposed the term biosystematics to new systematics. The number, size, shape of chromosome were considered by cytotaxonomists here as very reliable parameters for cytotaxonomy classification. The development of techniques like two-dimensional paper chromatography and identification of chemical substances in plants as secondary metabolites led to the development of chemotaxonomy. Then holotaxonomic phase. Next is holotaxonomic phase. The holotaxonomic phase represents the final stage where all available data from various sources like morphology, anatomy, cytology, phytochemistry, etc., is integrated to understand the evolutionary relationship and phylogeny of plants. It involves synthesizing information from earlier phases like exploratory and consolidation and biosystematics to create a comprehensive understanding of plant diversity and their evolutionary history. Information is gathered, analyzed, and a meaningful inference is drawn for understanding phylogeny. Collection of data, analysis, and synthesis are the main work of an independent discipline of taxonomy, that is numerical taxonomy. So, is numerical taxonomy or quantitative taxonomy is based on numerical evaluation of the similarity between groups of organisms and the ordering of these groups into higher ranking taxa on the basis of these similarities. Then exploratory and consolidation phase are considered as alpha taxonomy, while biosystematics and encyclopedic phase are considered as omega taxonomy. Thank you.